Awesome sauce. All right, so PvT next. This is the one which I think a lot of people are very interested in because they're like, you can't make that work. You can't make a cannon rush
They're
work
not
in
wrong.
PvT. It's difficult, right? Like,
So the thing about PvT is that you have to accept that if both players play perfectly, the Terran will win comfortably. But it's StarCraft, so both players are not going to play perfectly. Both players are going to make many, many mistakes because this is StarCraft, and that's how StarCraft works. So what you have to do is you have to identify very accurately and quickly what mistakes the opponent is making, and you need to be able to punish them for those mistakes. And you also have to be able to force mistakes. Give the opponent as many opportunities to make mistakes as they possibly can. I guess it's not really forcing, but give a lot of opportunities, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's all about finding mistakes the opponent makes and punishing him for it in PvT.
So this one's up against Dragon. Now you've got a pylon in your main mineral line. I guess that's to stop against any sort of like drop counter or something like that.
Reaper specifically. That's my Reaper pylon. One Reaper can be very, very annoying. Just, it's faster than a probe and is ranged and has grenades. But if you have a pylon in your mineral line, you can build 2 cannons in your mineral line, and that is enough to defend Reapers pretty much.
Yeah.
One cannon won't do anything though. It can just sit on the edge of the mineral line and be annoying. So you need 2 cannons, and that means the pylon has to be in that awkward placement inside your mineral line to properly defend it.
All right. So here we see you coming in. You're doing yet again another low ground wall. And now is your pylon there next to the barracks for a specific reason, or?
So it's there because that's where I always put it on this map. His barracks being there was... so this was like the 4th game we played on this day. So I believe he put it there because he knew I wanted to put my pylon there. I technically want my pylon a hex to the left from where it currently is.
Yeah.
For complicated reasons. So I think he just put it there to stop me from putting mine there. So I just put it right next to his barracks.
That's interesting. I feel like putting his depot up there is a really bad move because that's exposed. And I think as Terran, you want to kind of use your mobility a little bit better, right?
Yeah, so most Terrans, of course, would be walling off, and the depot would actually be even more exposed.
Yeah.
I think this depot is actually out of range of my low ground cannon, possibly. So the first depot is pretty much always going to be exposed anyway, because it'll normally be at the ramp.
Yeah.
But yeah, losing a first depot for free to a cannon... Oh, it is in range, never mind. Losing that depot slows you down a lot, and I think he actually gets supply blocked here. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game. He leaves before he gets supply blocked this game.
He just gets wrecked. Shreked
Yeah,
around,
I 4-0'd him. I 4-0'd him that day. The games mostly looked like this, except the one where we went Command Center first in Cactus Valley. Because people like going Command Center first in that map.
Yep.
Yeah, one game he got a factory up and tried to build a Cyclone, and he was supply blocked, and then he like never ended up getting the Cyclone out. And this game went like this. There was another game where he built a bunker like way too close to my cannons and just kind of died because of that. I don't know. He was having a rough time.
Yeah, man. So I mean, once again, no attempt to block your cannon rush on the low ground, I think has got to be the #1 mistake which he's making, right?
Definitely. That's the #1 mistake here. Yeah, you have to block walls. You have to slow me down with your SCVs. He at least does correctly attack the on-walled cannon with 3 SCVs, and then he throws a couple more on it. But 3 is all you really need. Yeah. But you do want to slow me down by delaying my first cannon by blocking any walls.
For those guys watching at home, yeah. So when a cannon starts, just 3 workers, if they start attacking it the moment it starts, they will stop it by the time it finishes, right? Like it'll run out of hit points just as it finishes. Yep. So normally my number when I'm defending is 4 drones or 4 SCVs because I'm not usually attacking it the moment it starts. So I just kind of think, okay, 4, that way it'll definitely go down pretty quickly. Makes it a lot simpler. But yeah, here in this situation, it's basically just, okay, you're being overwhelmed. This is one of those ones where it's like, if you let this many cannons get up this fast, I feel like your only choice as the Terran is to lift your command center and run. And you'd almost be better off if you did build a Reaper or 2 instead and didn't even try to fight the cannons and just ran those Reapers across the map. And then because of mules, if he can kill half your probes and still have mules dropping and a few SCVs, he's still actually in a very playable position, especially if he gets out a cyclone, you know, lifts his factory to the low ground somewhere away from your cannons. You don't really have much follow-up tech, right? Like, you're building a zealot, but it's going to take a while for you to add more on top of this.
Yeah, so I think going Reaper first usually ends poorly, but if you do go Reaper first and immediately fly away, you might be able to make that work.
Yeah.
Against anybody who doesn't do the pylon inside the mineral line, the Reaper could probably just win you the game immediately. Versus the Reaper pylon, though, the Reaper will, of course, force 2 cannons, but not do much damage outside of that.
Yeah.
And the important thing that people neglect when talking about the Terran flying away is the tactical disadvantage of not being in your main base. So on this map, for example, you can't fly to your natural. You will just, die to the cannons that are in your natural. If you fly to your third, you will have all your mining denied by a single high ground stalker, and that is, basically game over because you're not mining because of a single stalker. So where are you going to fly? You're going to fly to the rocks? Long distance, you're going to like fly all the way to the top of the map? Where are you going to go?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't fly away on this map without suffering. Like, the third would be the obvious spot, but like I said, you can't mine against a single stalker. So it's not as, like, flying away doesn't just make the cannon rush relevant.
Yeah.
And this is, this map specifically I'm talking about right now, but pretty much every map has something similar to that. Flying away is never optimal.
Yeah. So what's interesting here is you recognize this is a much more desperate situation in PvT. This is much more all in, and as a result, you do cut more probes here, right? I believe you stop at 16.
Yes, I stop at 16.
Cool. So you're just like, I need to get these cannons down, enough of them as quickly as possible. I got to overwhelm, basically.
Yeah, if you're paying close attention, you'll see my supply there went up to 17 and then drops back down to 16. That's because I start the 17th probe, and then if the Terran has not rushed a wall off, I cancel it. If the Terran rushes a wall, then I let it finish.
Okay, cool. And that's because you feel like it's going to be a slower situation. You're going to get the depots, so you don't need to kill him as quickly, but you also can't force your way into the main base as quickly, I guess, because you've only got one probe inside.
Well, I'm specifically here talking about like him rushing the wall from the start of the game, so none of my probes get in.
Oh,
like,
so
my first probe gets his base, and he's got a full wall off.
I forget that people just try to like blind counter you all the time and stuff. This is so funny. I just find it so comical that like everyone knows what you're doing and you still make it work. Yeah. Do you get much salt these days? Like how?
Surprisingly, no. Okay. People at this point have kind of accepted that I am going to exist and I'm here to stay, and so they've just given up on it mostly.
It's so funny because like it is frustrating when someone beats you in a way which you don't understand in StarCraft. That's one of the challenges and interesting things in the game. And it's funny because this is one of these rushes. Any cannon rush is always a situation where I feel like every Zerg especially, but anyone that loses to it is like, they start just talking about the symmetry of the game. They're just like, it's just unfair. Like, if I want to spine crawler rush, I need creep. If I want to bunker rush, I need to bring multiple SCVs. I can't just have one worker, which I start off with, just build like 10 cannons in your base. Like, that's just unfair. It's so funny, man.
And that's when I start complaining about Ravagers.
Yeah. Tier 1 artillery unit? Are you kidding me?
Do you have any idea what I would give to have Ravagers? I can sit behind my cannons and bile you. That would be glorious.
Alright, man.
Or nukes.
Oh my god, that would be great. So to summarize, really what we've seen so far in both PvT and PvZ is a similar pattern in that walled off cannons where workers can't get on top of the individual first cannon is key. In both PvT and PvZ, and really players need to duel with your probes, and it's not as binary as you just need to follow the probe with an SCV, right? It's you need to try and block what you think are the most brutal positions. So I guess to any Terran or Zerg out there, when you see a pylon in your base, the first thing you want to look at is where are the sort of wall-in areas around that. Here, I'm kind of boxing, I know you can't see it. A gateway and a pylon with a cannon, even on the high ground, could go. There could be a cannon directly to the right of this pylon. So if you
to the left if the barracks isn't there.
Yeah, if the barracks isn't there as well. So if you can't completely be binary, but you do want to say, okay, what's the most common wall off? And that's the first one I'm going to... Okay, it's that where you put the cannon and the gateway, because it's nestled in this tight little corner. Super, super beautiful little wall in there, and it takes a long time for workers to get down there reactively. And yeah, it's just, it's really, you've got to kind of figure out, okay, where is the most frustrating position that a cannon rush could go? You start to visualize this stuff. And after playing Heart of the Swarm for many years, you know, every time I see a pylon in my base, the first thing I look is the terrain, the mineral patches around it, and I start to visualize where is the most frustrating wall off that my workers can't get access. And then I've got workers that are attacking the probes and trying to zone them out. I've got workers patrolling back and forth with the gate and cannon. And yeah, just doing everything I can to buy time.
One note on that last thing. I think patrolling is incorrect. It is better to use hold position.
Okay,
the reason for this,
yep.
Yeah, I actually made, well, the video wasn't entirely on this, but it was mentioned in it. In one of my tutorial videos, I went over how to abuse people who use patrol, because you can put your probe in the patrol path, and then the drone goes around your probe, and then you just build where they were trying to patrol.
That's really cool. I do remember that like it would be a little bit inconsistent, so I try to do like if you guys do want to use patrol path, you're not playing Printf, you're playing average Joe cannon guy. I remember you would do like a very tiny path to make sure it's still covering both spots, but even then it could be slightly inconsistent. So I do like that idea of you're like, okay, if I just block this one space, I know that's like the key space. Just hold position there. That's going to, you know, force any wall off to be way more awkward and just deal with that. But then, like, it's funny as well, because if you've only got one drone doing that and then the probe starts attacking, you've got to be quick to tell your worker to fight back. But then you've got to make sure you don't chase the probe, because what you can do as Printf is you're like, oh, I'll fight you. And they're like, oh, I'll fight you back. And the probe, like, runs back, turns, just goes around him and puts the structures down anyway. And you're like, God, friggin' damn it. So it's very micro-intensive, the sort of worker battle that goes down.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, it's all about giving your opponent opportunities to make mistakes. So attack probes, if they're on stop, they'll like run away. If they're not and they start attacking you, you run away, and then they follow you, and then you turn around, now there's walls and cannon, all kinds of fun stuff like that.
That's awesome. All right, so let's hop out of that game. Let's look at this PvT loss in the next one. While we keep talking about this, guys, continue to ask any questions you can in chat. Just make sure you use the @x5_pig tag so that it highlights it for me, so that I can very easily see that while still focusing on what we're doing with the show. And all right, we're gonna see a loss. Awesome. Of course, massive thanks to Printf for coming on and being willing to share your secrets with us. Like, you know, people have an idea behind the guy who plays random every game, plays on a barcode, is like drooling in his mom's basement, and he's like, I'm gonna steal people's ladder points. Yeah. And you're like the most gentlemanly cannon rush guy ever, who's like, well, actually, I actually refined the shit out of my builds, and I understand how they work, and I know how to force mistakes, and I'm gonna talk about it openly and still beat you. And everyone's like, oh, so you're like, I feel like you're the spokesperson of cannon rushes and like aggressive play. Like, if someone says cannon rush is cheese to you, what do you say to that? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I say it depends on your definition of cheese. There are a lot of definitions I've heard. Some of them fit my style, some of them do not. Cheese being defined as relies on the opponent not scouting it, definitely not applicable. I assume my opponent is going to scout me, basically. But then there are other definitions of cheese that have nothing to do with that, and yeah, those fit me. So it really depends on what definition you use.
Yeah, the thing is, the way you talk about cheese actually convinces me that it's not cheese necessarily. And who knows? Maybe if you're playing Dark and Dark scouts it, he will hold it every game, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's Dark. He would definitely beat me. He's better than me.
Exactly, right? But like you know, maybe SOS can't make it work or something in the current Legacy of the Void meta. Even though, you know, definitely in HOTS, it would work at the highest level. Classic SOS, everyone would. And maybe that's the case, but I definitely think, you know, the way we're seeing it here, it doesn't fit my definition of cheese, because my definition of cheese is exactly like what you were just saying, where it's about scouting. For me, I feel like it's like, my definition is if you have to kind of have it not be scouted, it relies on surprise primarily to work. And the other thing, I guess the other one is like, your opponent not knowing how to react is like a part of the definition, but for me the biggest thing which defines a cheese is always like it relies on surprise more than anything. And Yeah, I feel like you've got so many different variations of this that like it really does lessen the amount of chance and surprise that's needed to throw people off, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that cheese is bad anyway. It's a part of strategy is trying to surprise your opponent.
Yeah.
It's like this is how you win wars. So this is interesting. So this one, obviously, we already know it's a loss. What's very interesting is he didn't really try to combat the low ground wall at all, and he just immediately pulled off gas and built a second barracks. So
yeah, so this is Braddock actually.
yeah.
He's very good. He's specifically very good at defending cannon rushes. Counting my most recent games against him, in which I went 1-4, I think. I am 2-6 against him historically. I've seen him beat King Cobra many times on his stream. King Cobra being a Russian cannon rusher who is very good.
Yeah.
Probably not many people know of him though.
Harston paid for coaching with him back in the day.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I think I'm pretty sure it was King Cobra where Harston and a few other Protoss pros are like, yeah, like I'm actually going to pay you for coaching because like they're just like, a new map pool comes out, you want some easy tournament wins here and there, like there are some brutal spots that you should know about, and
yeah,
I remember that being like, Harston's kind of laughing about it, but he's like, man, it was worth it. Like I know some disgusting spots for cannon rushes right now.
Yeah, King Cobra is really good, and I've seen him lose many times Braddock on stream, and I've lost many times Braddock. He's really good at holding cannon rushes, so I thought a replay of me against him would be good. So this game, I canceled my low ground gateway to cannon the bunker a little bit more.
Yeah.
I was perhaps a little bit indecisive and did that too late. I probably could have done that like 10 seconds earlier and had more success breaking this bunker. But the bunker is really well placed. This is where you want to put it. Between your command center and the cannons, but not close enough that the first cannon hits it.
Yeah. So out of range of the first cannon, but any new cannons won't be able to get in range of the CC or the mining without going through the bunker first, unless you build an entirely new station of pylons and cannons behind the mineral line or something silly.
Yeah. Braddock also did what in my opinion, is the correct response, which is a second barracks, just pump a ton of Marines, pull SCVs strategically for anything that's like not walled in. He denied me getting any high ground cannons up until my low ground cannon finished. He loses SCVs during the hold, of course, but he comes out like quite a bit ahead.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, people look at this and like, well, look, even though he reacted perfectly, you're still ahead. You're at double the economy. No, there's going to be an orbital making soon enough, and he's going to have 6 Marines, and you have no transition off this, right? You've gone
literally don't even have a gateway.
Yeah. So what's really cool as well, by the way, something to talk about, I should have probably talked about it with the Zerg play as well, though we didn't get to see it as much, is it doesn't matter against Protoss because they get 2-shotted, their workers, but Terran and Zerg, the workers take 3 shots to die because it does 20 damage a shot, the photon cannon, and the SCVs have 45 or 40 hit points, but it counts as 41 hit points with a drone because they instantly regenerate 1 hit point after they take damage. So what you can do is if you ever are fighting cannons and the Protoss player doesn't focus fire, is you can stop attacking, give a move command, stop position, hold position, anything like that will stop your SCV being counted as an aggressive unit, a threat, and the cannons will automatically stop targeting them. So if you can time that to save your SCVs with 5 hit points or your drones with 1 hit point, that can make a big difference if you're in a sort of battle where there's SCVs and drones fighting against cannons. And likewise, on the Protoss side of things, you always want to make sure you're actually focus firing to finish those targets off and not leaving a bunch of red hit point units alive.
That's actually really important. I haven't really seen any Terrans do it, but Zergs do it a lot, and it's really annoying. Like, I was being lazy. Now you're forcing me to like micro. But also preemptively, and I was doing this in the PvZ win replay that we showed. Is if a probe taps the SCV or the drone, then it will die in 2 hits.
Yeah, that's
because
that's
the probe deals 5 damage, and that makes a difference.
Yeah.
So I actually got a couple extra drone kills in that other replay because of my probe attacking all the drones while they were attacking my pylons.
Sorry.
I know I mentioned the Reaper pylon here, but this map kind of makes it less effective, it turns out, because there's so much room behind the minerals.
Yeah.
The idea usually is that if I send probes around from like both sides and the Reaper is forced like to retreat through a cannon or whatever, or to get sandwiched or something. But Braddock is really good with his micro, and there's a lot of space here, so that didn't work out. So this Reaper does a stupid amount of damage.
Yeah. And I guess if you put your cannons like one space down, they start blocking mineral mining, and they still don't fully stop him from just coming up and dropping grenades and being annoying. So, yeah, lots of space behind that mineral line here. Okay, so this is interesting though. Like, even though I felt like he just kind of crushed it with his hold, but now because he's managed to do that counter damage, like he still doesn't have a CC. He's got his orbital. He's catching up in SCVs. With mules, he's probably got the better income, and he's definitely got a little bit stronger infrastructure right now. And I see you going double robo. So what's your game plan here? Obviously, it's not an ideal position, but what's the potential path to victory for you?
Well, my potential path to victory is I managed to like snipe a siege tank with immortals, maybe with the warp prism dropping on it or something, and then just like that gains me enough tempo to push him with a bunch of immortals and win the game or something. Really, at this point, I don't see much hope for myself because I kind of have a mental block against Terran. They just feel invulnerable. Stimbio kills everything, and C-Sanks are OP. You know, the usual Protoss assault. But basically, at this point, I'm just like, well, robo units are good. I'll just build a lot of immortals, and maybe something will happen.
Yeah.
I was a little bit slowed down by his Reaper. I would have liked to have my immortals out, more quickly than that. The Reaper did a lot of damage, and it continues to do more damage in seconds. I kind of got tilted by that Reaper. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh dude, yeah. Oh man. Oh my god, how does it keep escaping? Oh my god.
Yeah, I finally get it, and I was like, this game was worth it already. Yeah, that Reaper did a lot of damage.
That Reaper has a plaque on the wall, man. Holy shit. Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, you are building a pure immortal army. While not perfect against Marines, it's still they're such a great generic unit. And yeah, the supply is like, not that far off, and even though you're only on one base, like, it's just insane that even with this very nice response from him, great micro, great counter damage, I feel like the game is still kind of close, and that's what's really cool. I love to see a non-binary sort of execution of a build here, something where even if something goes a little bit wrong, things can still kind of work out. And I love the move forward there from you. Obviously, he reacted perfectly. You had to go for a snipe like that, and you've got the warp prism as well. Yeah. So yeah, just a bit too much damage to the Reaper, and obviously a perfect response there with the second barracks. As soon as he saw the pylon, he was just like, bam, second barracks, didn't even start an orbital, pulled SCVs to try to slow down your initial high ground cannon rush, I believe, but then he kind of
he didn't let me get a high ground cannon up until the low ground cannon was up.
Yep. And the thing is, a cannon takes 29 seconds to build, a bunker takes 29 seconds to build. So you can see he basically just doesn't really build a bunker until you start this high ground cannon. And even then he's like, oh shit, cannon's a few seconds faster. Let's make sure I just sacrifice an SCV there, kill that cannon, so I know I've got, these extra cannons you're putting down are going to be delayed. And then he's like, okay, cool, the bunker will be done. I've got Marines already kind of shooting them. I'll probably kill another one before it finishes. And then it's just going to be a repair battle. So good hold here from Mr. Patch Terran, Mr. Brattok. Of course, a very successful pro back in the day. Cool to see he's still playing a bit of Legacy. Awesome.
Yeah, he streams even.
Oh, cool. Time zone wise, I'm like so unaware of when Europeans are streaming half the time, I swear. I'm like, TLO, why didn't you stream anymore? And he's like, I've streamed 4 times this week. And I'm like, oh, I guess it's when I'm asleep. But yeah, cool, awesome. All right, so let's finish up the PvT part, and let's go into Protoss versus Protoss. The big question, and also one which I think is very interesting because there's a lot of very interesting cannon rushes in PvP. So we've got a win versus